Asket's Explanations Part 5. Personal explanation from September 14, 1964, Meier, India. Asket still provided many further explanations which, however, one is not permitted to mention. They deal exclusively with past events, the significance of which must be kept secret into the distant future. How these connections affect the future was explained to me, and I am therefore orientated about it, even if not in all the details. But it became clear to me, after Asket's explanations, that very many events of the past are very important for the future still to come, and for that reason their course is not allowed to be influenced by the revealing of facts through which certain matters within the events could be negatively changed. My own reason tells me that my silence was justifiably required and that I must hold to that in the interest of all humans. On the other hand, I also have no right at all to want to play do-gooder, or someone who wants to change the world, in order to change events for better or worse, by means of some sort of intervention, as a result of my acquired knowledge. I must hold to that, as it relates to the world and the humans, exactly as I do, as it relates to my own life, which, with very many events, I know in advance. I can also not change this, because I know that very evil times will come for me and I will have to withstand all sorts of miserable things. I know that these coming events must happen and I must go through them, that I must overcome them and that I may not simply avoid them, because I now know that these events hasten towards me at determined times and will bring me pain, suffering and need, as well as hate and slander. That which must occur must not be changed, because otherwise the required course of evolution would be disturbed. For that reason it is a rational duty, in respect of all creational laws, to never influence the future counter to its determination, when a human knows this future. In the course of the years of my life it has, however, also become completely clear to me that it is not good for the human when he knows his future. If he knows his future, then, in his egoism, he moves in the direction of wanting to influence the future in accordance with his own will and thereby creates enormous unhappiness. This is because he wants to avoid certain coming events which will bring him suffering or need, and so forth. I had to learn from my own experience that the human succumbs to very evil conflict with himself if he knows his own future. It is especially the case if he becomes aware of negative things in his future. Out of egoism, self-pity and other motivations, the human who has not had this explained to him resists the coming negative events if he knows them. He tries to evade them, to avoid them and to not have to confront them. The human also fears these kinds of coming negative events if he knows them in advance. But none of that is permitted, because, already, just through that alone, through fear, the coming events will change and will evoke wrong effects. The human is still not capable of coping with, and fully understanding, the truth. And he is not yet mature enough to know his future and to approach it correctly. For that reason the truth must be rewritten prophetically for him, as in equations, in order to make him think independently, whereby he slowly finds and recognizes the truth himself. For that reason the human must be spoken to in prophecies and parables, and also, for that reason, the events of the future must be explained to him in veiled form. Everything must be explained and be presented in a rewritten form, whereby the human is stirred to thought and begins to search. Only through his research does he find possibilities of an interpretation and, in that way, slowly recognizes the truth. Were he not spoken to in parables and prophecies, and the explanations of the future not presented in circumscribed and somehow mysterious form, then he would make no effort to do his own thinking, and he would also want to change the future, because, if it were all presented in open, unparaphrased form, he would indeed know all of this in every detail, with which he truly could not cope. I know from my own experience that this is actually the way it is. Many things were explained to me regarding my own life before the events actually overtook me. And I know just as many things about my life which are yet to happen to me. I have learned that knowing these things in advance requires a great deal of energy, and that this kind of knowledge can lead to the edge of madness. I often shivered with great terror when I knew that, yet again, a very bad incident unavoidably approached me. And very often I was on the verge of simply throwing everything in and preparing an end to my life. But with time I learned that I had to master everything within myself if I wanted to do justice to life. I slowly learned to overcome the ghastly terror or angst and to correctly adapt to everything. But I am convinced that I would certainly not have been able to overcome everything without the loving help of my extraterrestrial friends. To know the actual truth about the future of one's own life is insane, because the human is not able to cope with this truth. He must quite simply be shattered by it. But, if that is not so in my case, it is only because a superhuman strength, as well as the teachings of the truth, as well as the conquering of myself, and, not the least of it, an appropriate outside help, have fundamentally changed me. Therefore that happened with me, and I did not earn all my success. I certainly never would have done that alone, all by myself, because, insofar as consciousness is concerned, I am certainly still much too primitive, too stupid and too underdeveloped. Through my own initiative alone, I never would have learned how to know my future, how not to influence it incorrectly, and how to approach it correctly. And today, if I feel no more angst and fear for all the coming events of the impending decades, that is also absolutely certainly not something that I earned on my own. I know what has to come, yet, for that, I feel no more angst or fear. I know that I may never try to change or influence the future merely because I know this future. This knowledge also conquered the angst and fear in me. Certainly I have not become unfeeling through this curbing of angst and fear. Quite the contrary, my feelings have become even more sensitive and move along extremely fine courses. Therefore, if an event of the future which is known to me draws near, then my feelings begin to act, and often I become quite uneasy. It is also that way now, because I think about my future in the coming year, about an event that will be unavoidable. In 11 months I am to step into a further episode of life, the entrance to which is to be very hard for me. I now know the precise place and the precise date that this passage, over into a new episode of life, will take place. I know that now. And I know that I am to lose my left arm in a bus accident. I know all that. And I know that only 11 months remain for me until then, if I do not calculate the time precisely to the day. Yet what will be, I perceive no more angst for that which comes. Only my feelings perform their insane play. Asket's explanation from February 14, 1953 in the desert mountains at the Dead Sea in Jordan. Written down with Asket's memory assistance and through her apparatuses, on the 14th of September, 1964 in Meier, India.